Well, with me today is Mr. Aldo Billingslea.
Aldo.
Mr. Billingsley is a professor at Santa Clara University, where he teaches multiple courses, including American theater from the Black perspective, acting styles, Shakespeare, and seminars on August Wilson. Alongside his work at the university, Mr. Billingsley is a lifelong professional actor who has appeared in more than 2 dozen Shakespeare plays, as well as productions of August Wilson's Gem of the Ocean, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and Fences, Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire, and Lorraine Hansberry's The Sign in Sidney Bernstein's Window. These are just to name a few of many productions. Again, just to name a few of many, Mr. Billingsley has worked at the American Conservatory Theater, the Aurora Theater, California Shakespeare Theater, the Lorraine Hansberry Theater, and the Marin Shakespeare Theater. An incredibly influential performer, creator, and educator, I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to meet with you and speak with you today, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Anneliese.
But I would love to know a bit more about how you would describe yourself as an actor, a director, or professor to someone who doesn't know your work.
I would say that I'm an actor first. That's the aspect of the art that I'm I find most compelling and that I am best suited for. Um, I direct, and actually, while I was in Lorraine Hansberry's Les Blancs, I was not actually in Simon Sidney Brewstein's Window. I directed it. It was the first production I directed at Santa Clara. Directing is not my strongest suit. Uh, um, uh, Coaching actors is a better equivalent of what I do as a director, and it's a little deceptive for some actors who, if they aren't clear, if they haven't taken a lot of classes with me, then they don't realize that when you get out, that's not something that often happens. Directors are focusing on literally the big picture, and and they're not going to be coaching you through that difficult moment because you don't know how to connect to the emotional scene where your puppy dies, those sorts of things. Um, uh, as an acting teacher, those are moments that I can help with more so. And that's why I use directing as the lab experience for the actor who's learning in the rehearsal hall and then gets to jump into the petri dish of the stage.
I appreciate that response very much. Thank you. I am going to pull us back to Shakespeare a little bit and ask about when you first got interested in Shakespeare and why you chose to pursue a career in theater and within your theater work specifically, like what role Shakespeare plays.
Um, uh, I do recall coming across um, a copy of Othello, uh, and it was after middle school but before high school. I was trying to figure some of the language out and asking my mom what the beast with two backs was and watching her not look at me and answer. So I thought, oh, this is maybe one of those things. Uh, um, I didn't try to perform any until my first year in high school. Uh, um, my English teacher, Janet Henderson, said that we could write a paper or we could perform a scene. And I didn't want to write a paper. And I was like, so we could perform a scene. All right. So then we go and then we see Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet. And I am floored. I am so a part of those dusty, dirty streets and these guys running around in tights and they're slinging this metal and you know and Romeo and Juliet in the bedroom is just that makes me feel funny, but I'm not exactly sure what that's about either. Um, but the fights, oh, they were just so thrilling. So I'm playing on the football team, and I talk about six guys on the football team into doing this with me and saying, we don't have to do the paper. We can do this. So we all jump up in there, and we don't have tights, but we do have t-shirts and sweats, which is practically the same thing. And we assign roles, and I took Mercutio because the language, and I thought he would be great. And my teacher was so thrilled. We all got such great grades, and I was furious. I could not have been more frustrated that in my head we were going to be charging down those streets and the dust and then the, and all the and and I couldn't get the language out. Couldn't get the war and the other guys on the football team. The wide receiver is not saying the words that are written down, and even when I'm saying the words that are written down, they don't sound anything like any of the and the Tybalt didn't sound like Michael York, and it just none of it satisfied. It was so frustrating, and I didn't have words to understand why. Uh, but I thought, yeah, I won't be doing any more of this. So not until my senior year, with being able to say some lines from the Scottish King, and that was a journey of I I had struggled in geometry, but I loved uh, proofs, and it felt like that of trying to figure out, oh, there's this word here, we don't know what that is, let's look at it in context, and if that's over on this side, it felt almost algebraic. Is there something else that equals something over here, and the antithesis, and trying to find the balance and those sorts of things, was exciting but not great. uh, um, More progress, but still, uh, 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 what I perceive as what's going to happen is not quite what happened, and it's still, this language is still kicking me in my butt. Uh, I auditioned my sophomore year for my school's putting on Hamlet, and they're doing it in the fall. And in the fall, I'm playing football and trying to do football and theater, and it was a big deal that I got cast. It's a small school, really, really small school. There's even today there's only like 1,200 students on the campus. So that I was going to be in the play was, everybody hears, and no matter what I do, every mistake on the football field, Billingsley, get your head out of Hamlet, and and then me coming in to rehearsal, trying to eat from dinner because we just got off the field about 20 minutes before, and trying to go into rehearsal. But at the audition, I was doing Polonius and had absolutely no clue at all what was being said. And I thought halfway through of like doing the detective work, and I was like, oh, he's just he's just giving advice. He's just giving advice to his son. And I well, okay, I can't, yeah, I kind of get that. And then it fell apart on the last line on go to, and I was like, go to. It was just, it was like, oh, and this language, and so I thought it was great. I thought Shakespeare was fun, except for Shakespeare, because he kept getting in the way with this language. Uh, and then someone in graduate school, I said, yeah, yeah, this is good stuff. Everybody loves him. We're studying him in graduate school, more classical theater. And I was like, yeah, but I'm the only black guy of the 12 graduate students in my class. And so you are looking at this stuff for all the roles you can play. Like, there's like 2 in the canon. And I was like, well, actually, there aren't a lot, but there are more. And and you should also look at some of the other roles, is what some of my classmates were telling me. I'm like, right, right, right. And someone said, Aldo, I think you'd make a great Prince of Morocco. It's like, what? I don't even know who that is. But did you say Prince? He's a Prince, really? So the ego of the actor is a dangerous thing. Anneliese, it's just awful.
Oh,
Anneliese, how many actors does it take to screw in a light bulb?
oh, I do not know.
Just one. They hold on to the light bulb, and the world revolves around them. And so I dig into this thing looking for Prince of Morocco, and I see Morocco, but the ego kicks in, and I'm like, this is all right. Well, who's this Shylock? He's got a lot of lines. What's up with the Shylock? And start reading it, and then I see Shylock say, "Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands?" And everything he's saying, I have said about being black in Texas, where I see people wanting to treat me different because of this, and me trying to say, you wouldn't do this to yourself. Why are you doing this to me? You wouldn't treat someone who looked like you this way, but it's okay to do that to. And I read that over and over, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, and wanted so badly to be in that play. And then got cast in it in San Diego, and at the Globe Theater and the old Globe in San Diego, and it helped me launch. Um, uh, uh, Hal Holbrook was playing Shylock, and uh, I got to hang out in his dressing room sometimes as we were going over stuff. Uh, I was playing. We're also we started first by doing Tempest, and he was going to do that. But while we were rehearsing Tempest, we were also rehearsing Merchant and Rep. Uh, and and the director said, whoever comes at me and can explain all of these sea terms might be able to get the role of the captain. And I had read about Hal Holbrook sailing solo on the South Seas on a for weeks and for a time out there by himself. And so I was asking him about these things, and we started talking, and he was helping me break the language down, and got this one-on-one Shakespeare lesson from him, which was wonderful. And then got to play Morocco when he was playing Shylock, and uh, and from there went on to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and from there worked my way around to several Shakespeare theaters. Um, uh, but we Shakespeare and I, we have a wonderful relationship now. It was a little rocky at first. He just really wasn't my type initially, but then I don't know, he grew on me, and now we went through therapy together, and now we're much stronger. So.
I appreciate that. I very much appreciate your answer. And I will ask you a little bit more about, some of your Shakespeare performances, specifically your performance as Othello with Cal Shakes, just because, part of this database will be going towards helping the production of Othello here at the Court Theater. Um, but first, I would like to ask you one more question. And this one is kind of an open-ended one, but like, what do you wish you had been cast for in the past, and what do you hope you will be cast for in the future? I know maybe I do not know how much acting you're doing in this moment, or how much you're planning to continue doing, but I love this question, and I would love to hear your response to it.
I am heartbroken that Mercutio got by me. I uh, I just love that play, and um, had never been in Romeo and Juliet. Uh, like 5 or 6 midsummers, and uh, five times played Othello, and one time was in Othello. Um, but you know, three Coriolanus. Who gets three Coriolanus? Um, and no Romeo and Juliet, and or Comedy of Errors, or um, uh, 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 Shrew. Would be awesome to play Petruchio, but I'm getting a little long in the tooth to play that guy. Um, but then again, there are some fabulous actors. Uh, you know, Sophia Frederick would make an amazing Kate, uh, and for somebody who's that dynamic and has that kind of size, it would be cool to play opposite her. Though that's another bias that we have, that if the woman is tall, you need a tall man. And it's a bias that I have benefited from. Uh, but my father was 5'8", my mother was 6 foot, so it's not a rule in nature. So But yeah, Mercutio and Petruchio, those would be fabulous. Uh, Edmund and Lear is fun, except um, there, there again we start going into biases and the black Edmund as the bastard, that Lear had sex with a black woman and outside. I'm sorry, that Gloucester had sex with a black woman outside of his marriage, and so Edward is his white legitimate son, and Edmund is his black illegitimate son, and those issues uh, can often come up and are particularly dubious when you only have one black person in the play. It's like, oh, so your one black person has to be your villain, really? Because there's only one black person who does Shakespeare, really? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, so you want balance there. But those two primarily. I also really wanted Palamon and Two Noble Kinsmen. Um, it's hardly ever done, uh, and the brothers who are or are the cousins or brothers who are so close and so alike in dignity, uh, who become star-crossed when they see a woman that they both fall for, is just too hysterical, too fun, um, and the play is oh so freaking tragic that the female who is most moving and most Ophelia like, but never named in the play. The jailer's daughter has no name. What does that say about status and gender? Um, is it's a That's a great role, and then um, so there's that, and then Aaron and yeah, and Titus Andronicus because he is such a bad boy. Um, yeah, he makes Iago look like a choir boy. Uh, the his glee at doing evil is just astounding. Oft have I digged up dead men from their graves, and even when they're in, and set them on their dear friends' doorsteps, even when their sorrow almost was forgot, and on their skins, as on the bark of trees, have with my knife carved in Roman letters, "Let not your sorrow die, though I am dead." Dang,
I know. I was.
that dude is messed up.
Yeah.
That dude is messed up. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. So there are some roles.
Well, thank you. That was a very comprehensive answer. And actually, I had a question that I was gonna ask close to the end, but you've been touching on it with your comments about the challenges playing Edmund and King Lear. And I was wondering if there are any Shakespeare plays or plays generally that you believe pose major structural problems or issues for Black performers and or Black theater makers.
Because the answer is yes,
Mhm.
yes. Um, uh, to When I played Kent and Lear at Cal Shakes, uh, the uh, the two things with Kent. One, Kent is in the court, is banished, and comes back in disguise. And I said, we can do this, uh, but first off, have we cast anybody else black in this play? Because if I'm the only black guy in the play, then that's something else too. And they're like, no, there was one other person who's black, and there were some Asian performers. So it's like, okay, uh, and how is it that Lear isn't going to know it's me with a clean shave? Uh, so Amanda Dennert and I talked about that, and we kept playing with different dialects and stuff, and then said, "Well, what if he comes back as someone who's trans and thinks Kent would never? That's not my soldier. Would never do that." Uh, so not only did we shave, but I let my hair grow out enough to where in the top of the show, I could press it down um, with a do rag, and then they had a hat like a baseball hat. So if you take the baseball cap and then you cut right here in the middle out, they would put the hat on top of my head, pick my hair out till it was a mohawk, and then they would uh, spray it pink. And then they take the hat off, and I had this straight up little pink mohawk that was working, and then nails and a lot of makeup, skirt, and just a very different looking top uh, to um, to come in as somebody who was very different, and then with um, uh, more of a Cockney, Sid Vicious sort of dialect to play with. Um, uh, but when Kent was when Goneril, or is it Reagan? I always get confused. Uh, Regan O'Goneril locks up Kent uh, um, uh, outside of the castle and puts him in the stocks. That's when the letters came to the theater. You had a black man in chains,
Mm.
and uh, but that's not. Yeah, it's somebody saying this image is problematic. This image is bothersome, uh, and and I think that's all right. And we felt like it was all right. It was something that it's not something that we hadn't ever thought about, but it was something that I think was a bit fueled uh, for, and particularly for Lear. Lear sees it and goes a little nuts, and so I think that actually works. Um, it is a moment in which the audience comes out of the story, but particularly sometimes with outdoor theater where in the backdrop you can hear a cow mooing or a coyote going, which literally happens at cow shakes. And Lord, when the coyotes get a hold of a turkey, it's just you can hear Discovery Channel happen behind you. Um, uh, so a question about the play pulling you out a little bit is not necessarily a bad thing. Uh, and while he um, was just coming into the theater at that point, Eric Ting, the director, uh, um, made much use of that disrupting of the story with contemporary thoughts being added to the classical story for that Othello. That was his intent.
Yes, I absolutely. I mean, thank you for the beautiful transition. I had exactly wanted to ask about that. Um, Obviously, I've touched a bit on in our time together the fact that you played at Cal Shakes as Othello in Eric Ting's production of Othello. And I would love your perspective on the play. If you could speak to, I know you played Othello, I think 5 times, if I have that number
Yeah,
correctly.
that was number five.
Wow,
Uh,
that is quite a few, and I would love to hear your experience playing Othello. And then I have a few more questions specifically about what you were just mentioning, the kind of talk back structure, both after the play and the way Eric Ting incorporated, breaking
um,
the fourth wall in the production.
I actually think that, and I'm not sure that he would disagree, but he might. But because Eric knew we were going to perform the play, and we had set up this tour of the play to go to a women's federal prison, to a mosque, to a senior citizens home in a residential unit in Oakland, uh, as well as like a high school too. That I think he was looking for a way that we could do the play and the transition not be too abrupt for the actors as they move from the stage to um, to go on the road. And uh, so we have I'll actually try to send you a series of photos that might help with this, um, if you decide to put them in while I'm just jabbering. Um, we had a series, a circle of chairs, and which makes blocking very tough. And So we had the chairs numbered, and so my script says, chair 3, chair 2, chair 7, chair 6, stand at 5, sit at 6 on this line. It was just really, really wacky. Um, and You didn't leave the stage. So Iago is saying, I hate the more. And you're sitting there watching him say these things. It was really, really interesting. Um, into rehearsal, he one day brings a bell. Like you go to the hotel register and you ding the so, and uh, there's a couple of them on stage, and the bell dings. I think first when we go out of the court and we head on the ships to Cyprus, and uh, um, uh, uh, look to her more. Uh, she hath deceived her father and may well be. No, actually, it's after Othello tells Desdemona that they have just a few moments together and they have to obey the time. Uh, so we must obey the time. Ding, an actor steps downstage left to a microphone and says, Cyprus is a place in the, and just we have, while we shift light poles and actors are grabbing a light, big, huge, actual studio for filming light on a great, big, huge tripod and rolling it onto another place on stage with a big cable behind it and stuff and moving things in different places. Uh, uh, and our actors are putting on a coat or whatever, and someone's putting on a little sailor hat, and so what from the coast can you discern at sea, and all those sorts of things, uh, um, so that it feels very rehearsal hall, and it is a distinct interruption of Shakespeare's text with some qualifying information, some footnote that you stop the play with. And then it happens again and again and again, and ding and ding and stop throughout for different things. Um, and uh, so these things continue to happen, uh, as well as upstage center is a huge, huge screen, rear projection, uh, so that you can see different things. And so when Othello is being gulled, and Iago talks to Cassio about Bianca, but Othello can't hear, and Othello is watching them physically and thinks they're talking about Desdemona, and and thinking that they're referring to her with these lewd suggestions and this physicality that is untoward. Uh, Othello is down center, way down center. Rodrigo is holding a video camera right in his face. And the image of Othello is being shown on the screen behind Iago and Cassio, who are upstage centerish. But behind them, all you see is my mug looking ferocious and do you laugh, villain? Do you laugh? And those sorts of things while that's happening. And so it seems to justify the camera in that moment, um, which is a brilliant choice because what happens next is the bed comes in, and I've been in a production where the bed came in, the audience clapped. Oh, here comes the bed! Oh, it's so beautiful. What the it's the set. It's the stagecraft. It's where Desdemona's going to get killed, and we're plotting. It's just, yeah, yeah. So the Emilia and Desdemona playing their scene there concurrently with Rodrigo and Iago um, doing their scene where they're going to ambush Cassio. And uh, what is helpful for the court and their production would be to know that those two scenes feel almost expository in their pace. They feel to be a little bit of a lull. Um, and the moments of excitement in the bedroom scene uh, is Desdemona saying, "What was that? It was the wind or whatever," and I'm fearful or whatever. That one of the dramaturgs uh, uh, had said, um, and actually from a previous production, Jason Menadakis, I did Othello with him at Marin Theater Company in 2012. He's the first person who ever said that's a Shakespearean device as known to an Elizabethan as a close up is or a dolly shot is for us. That if they hear that, they know in the next scene someone's going to be doing something that will tell them what that noise was. That noise outside their window is something that's going to be revealed later. So he was the first, Jason Menadakis was the first that I knew to blend the two scenes together so that, and some of this language from Desdemona Emilia, and then some language from Iago Rodrigo back to Desdemona Emilia, and really did a mashup that makes both scenes pop. And then you move to it is the cause, and Othello coming in with the candle. So that really um, helped with some pacing um, and some suspense of really being able to keep the rubber band tight. And some other productions, those moments have lost some tension uh, because as an audience, we are no longer in a position of wondering what's going to happen to Desdemona. We know the story, so um, there's that. Uh, and um, and then uh, after, well, the death, uh, when the bed comes in, the camera is set up and spiked so that the camera is focusing not on Othello, not on Desdemona, um, but focused on the corner of the bed. On you're like, you want to see a fitted sheet? What is that about? And that's what's big on the backstage screen is this corner of the bed. Um, uh, and then Othello kills Desdemona, and when she's murdered, she starts fighting, and then he goes to strangle her. And when he goes to strangle her, I think without a ding, there is a medical description of what it is to be suffocated.
Mm.
And you hear this description while you watch her struggle. And there were so many people who said that was it for them. They thought they were going to lose it. Uh, and it, the shit got real there. And in a way that's really um, uh, remarkable. We do this work so that the audience will have, technically, psychologically, will have a sympathetic reaction for the characters. And they will feel with them for them as they watch them go through what they do. And it's in that regard that it's art, that if you do it right, we are organ donors who've put our hearts on the line so that your heart will feel. So I hope that gets all of your questions.
More than all, and then more than many that I could have asked. And I guess so many, but I guess my question is if the audience is so heavily invoked and so like essential to the experience of this production, I was wondering what it felt like to be at such of a variety of audiences. So I guess for me, I do some personal work with incarcerated individuals, and so the women's prison just came out. I was like, this must have changed how the play felt,
Oh yeah,
or or like how it
oh yeah,
was, yeah, how it was performed, how it was experienced, and how it was received. And so
sure. So who's the hero that gets the warmest applause when they speak in this play when you do it in a women's prison?
I don't know.
Bianca.
Yes, that makes sense. That makes all of
Yes.
the sense.
Yes, and but we did the same thing. And she said some lines, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Yes!"
That's amazing.
And you're like, "That makes sense. That makes
Mhm.
sense. Absolutely." Um, your ability to see yourself on stage is crucial for theater, and that's why you need that variety of diverse voices that make the richness of our society come alive on the stage, or else the stage doesn't reflect who we are. And that's the end, both at the first and now.
Well, I will end this here because I have taken up much more of your time than I had originally asked for. So thank you again. I really appreciated all your answers and your time.